What if Ryan Reynolds played the Flash? Well, he almost did, before the project would morph into everything from a political thriller about corrupt cops to a Back to the Future style mystery, before finally becoming a multiverse blockbuster, which was originally meant to co-star Cyborg and set up Reverse Flash as the DCU's main villain, manipulating the Justice League from behind the scenes. To find out how we went from all of that to the film we know, let's take a look behind the scenes at what could have been The Flash. Following the success of Batman Begins, Warner Bros. Approached that film's writer David Goyer about bringing either Green Lantern or The Flash to the big screen, ultimately leaving the choice up to Goyer for which one to write and direct. Goyer would ultimately choose The Flash, as he was drawn to the character's untapped cinematic potential, not just the speed, but the possibilities of playing with time, physics, and relativity in ways superhero movies hadn't yet explored. Goyer wanted Ryan Reynolds in the lead role, after working with him on Blade Trinity, envisioning Wally West as a screw-up and lovable loser, much like Peter Parker in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films. That comparison wasn't accidental. The tone of The Flash was meant to be earnest, emotional, and accessible, capturing the same mix of heart, humor, and personal struggle that made Spider-Man such a hit. So what would the film have been about? Like Spider-Man, the film would also open with a voiceover narration from Wally West, in a very similar fashion, as he runs at super speed, explaining that before his Uncle Barry died, the Flash was just an urban legend. The story would then flash back 12 years to see Barry Allen as the Flash. He's hunted by the villainous Victor Vesp, a brilliant adversary who's uncovered Barry's secret identity. Vesp lures him into a carefully orchestrated trap using Wally as bait, intending to steal Barry's powers with a device called the Infinity Transducer. But the plan goes catastrophically wrong. The device explodes, vaporizing Barry, bathing Wally in blinding energy which gives him his uncle's powers, and leaving Vesp mysteriously wounded. 12 years later, Wally is coasting through life, misusing his powers and avoiding responsibility. He doesn't fight crime. Instead, he soaks up fame as a celebrity superhero, spending his days on talk shows and cashing in on endorsements. Everyone around him urges him to grow up and do something meaningful, but Wally brushes it off. Deep down, he's afraid of trying, afraid that if he does, he'll fall short of Barry's legacy. That fear keeps him stuck, never fully committing to anything. But when a commercial airliner suffers a landing gear failure, Wally is forced into action. He manages to save the passengers, and for the first time, begins to take his role as a hero seriously. Wally finds an unexpected mentor in Hunter Zolomon, Barry's former partner and a retired cop who was also caught in the explosion that killed Barry. Now confined to a wheelchair, Hunter channels his experience and guilt into guiding Wally, helping him grow past his immaturity and step up as a true hero. Meanwhile, Vesp, imprisoned for Barry's apparent death, escapes with the help of Zoom, a mysterious fellow speedster. Scarred by the explosion years earlier, Vesp now suffers from an unnaturally slowed metabolism, earning him the nickname the Turtle from fellow inmates. The big twist comes when it's revealed that Zoom is actually Wally's mentor, Hunter Zolomon. After years in a wheelchair, Hunter has secretly been siphoning bits of the Speed Force from Wally through Turtle's experiments, regaining his ability to walk in the process. But the power has corrupted him. Hunter justifies it all with bitterness. After 12 years of paralysis, Wally West, the screw-up, is the one who gets powers? As Wally confronts him, the Turtle reappears for one final attempt to steal Wally's speed using the Infinity Transducer. But Wally unleashes his full potential, erupting in a blinding blast of energy that sends him hurtling 12 years into the past. Once there, Wally finds himself within the Speed Force during the final seconds of Barry Allen's life. Barry, now composed entirely of charged light, appears to Wally, not dead, but trapped in that moment ever since the explosion. Barry warns Wally about the addictive nature of speed, but assures him he's capable of handling it. Though it breaks his heart, Wally agrees to leave Barry behind to return to the present to stop Turtle and Zoom. Back in the present, a now power-hungry Zoom absorbs the Speed Force energy Turtle had stolen and uses it to accelerate Turtle's heart until it bursts, killing him instantly. Wally explodes back into the present, engaging in a massive, speed-fueled battle against Zoom that spans the globe, and shakes the lower atmosphere with hurricanes and sonic booms. In the final showdown, Wally defeats Zoom with a concentrated blast of the Speed Force. No longer burdened by Barry's shadow, Wally embraces his role as a true hero. He's determined to one day rescue Barry from the Speed Force, and maybe, finally, balance being a superhero with having a life. So what went wrong? According to Goyer, it ultimately came down to creative differences. He and Warner Bros. Simply couldn't agree on what the Flash should be. Goyer was proud of the script he turned in. He poured his heart into it, and believed it could have laid the groundwork for a bold, groundbreaking superhero film. But when the studio wanted to take it in a different direction, Goyer chose to walk rather than stay and reshape the story into something he didn't believe in. Ironically, as the project stalled, Warner Bros. Shifted focus to Green Lantern. Lantern, the very film Goyer had passed on, and cast Ryan Reynolds as Hal Jordan, who Goyer intended to cast as Wally West. While the film was in production, Warner Bros. Hired its writers to write a new Flash film. This version of the Flash would have followed Barry Allen as he hunted a serial killer known as Captain Cold, who freezes his victims from the inside out. A suspect Barry believes may have murdered his mother, but the real twist comes when Barry discovers the true killer is his mentor, astrophysicist Eobard Thawne. Stranded in the past after a battle between them in the future, Thawne killed Barry's mother out of spite and patiently waited for Barry to gain his powers, planning to steal his speed using a particle accelerator and return to his own time. A post-credits scene would have featured Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern approaching Barry, impressed by his speed, setting the stage for a larger, interconnected DC cinematic universe. But after Green Lantern flopped at the box office, Warner Bros. Abandoned these plans. However, elements of the unmade film, including key concepts and set pieces, were later reworked into the Flash television series, starring Grant Gustin. Warner Bros. Would take another crack at a cinematic universe a few years later, when Zack Snyder began building the foundation for the DCU, but getting the Flash to the big screen didn't become any easier. Despite Ezra Miller being cast early on, the project went through numerous false starts and creative shakeups. In 2015, 21 Jump Street filmmakers Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were brought in to write a treatment. Their version was in a multiverse story. It focused on time travel and the physical consequences of Barry's powers. However, their take likely carried the same sharp, comedic tone found in their earlier work, which may not have meshed with the darker, more serious direction Zack Snyder was establishing for the DCU at the time. Eventually, they left to direct solo. After several stalled attempts, Warner Bros. Hired dope director Rick Famuyiwa. He quickly took to social media to express his excitement and share glimpses of the research he was doing, signaling a deep personal investment in the character and story. Rick's version would have followed Barry Allen's evolution from a secretive vigilante focused on his mother's murder to a public hero and respected forensic scientist. The main villains were Captain Cold and Golden Glider. The story also featured a major subplot in which Barry works to clear a reformed criminal who was framed for murder, ultimately exposing a ring of corrupt police officers who had fabricated evidence in dozens of cases, including Barry's father, who would have been played by Billy Crudup just like in Justice League. Iris West, whose brother also died in prison after being wrongly convicted, joins Barry in uncovering the truth and names him the Flash after he saves her during the events of Justice League. Cyborg plays a key role in the investigation and final battle, teaming up with Barry to stop the Rogues from unleashing citywide destruction. The Flash was originally envisioned as a trilogy, with Reverse Flash serving as a shadowy presence throughout the first two films before being fully revealed in the third installment, which would have been an adaptation of the Flashpoint paradox. This story was planned to unfold after the conclusion of Zack Snyder's Justice League trilogy and would have acted as a major crossover event for the DCU, as it would have been revealed that Reverse Flash was from the future and pulling the strings all along, as we'd see some of the influences he had on the rest of the Justice League. Flashpoint also would have provided for a natural way to reboot the universe, recast major roles, and launch a new era for the franchise, a forward-thinking move knowing the original actors couldn't stay locked in forever. However, the first film's subplot involving police corruption, brutality, and the killing of an unarmed black teenager allegedly resulted in Warner Bros. Deeming the film too political and ultimately parted ways with Rick, once again sending the Flash back into development limbo. The film would yet again go through a revolving door of writers, directors, and different approaches before Ezra Miller decided to just write the thing himself, along with comic book writer Grant Morrison. Warner Bros., however, would give them just 2 weeks to write it, and their version was a time travel mystery in the vein of Back to the Future, where Barry investigates a murder, accidentally alters the timeline to save Iris, and seeks guidance from the eccentric Professor Garrick, a Speed Force expert who serves as a clear Doc Brown-style mentor. The studio ultimately rejected Miller and Morrison's script, preferring a broader multiverse storyline that incorporated legacy characters from across DC's film history. This shift led to the hiring of IT director Andy Muschietti, who didn't want to directly adapt Flashpoint, but instead use elements of it to tell a new story. Billy Crudup was recast due to scheduling conflicts, and Cyborg was written out entirely after actor Ray Fisher refused to participate in any project involving DC Films head Walter Hamada, citing Hamada's handling of the investigation into Joss Whedon's behavior on the Justice League set. The film's ending would go through multiple reshoots due to leadership changes at Warner Bros. The original version featured Supergirl and Michael Keaton's Batman, reversing those characters' deaths from earlier in the film. After Hamada exited his role following Discovery's purchase of WB, Henry Cavill's Superman and Gadot's Wonder Woman were added to the scene. However, once James Gunn and Peter Safran took over DC, they cut them out, worried that including them would suggest to audiences that they were part of their future plans for the DCU, when in fact they intended to recast them. Instead, a third ending was created as a surprise final twist. George Clooney briefly returned as Batman, replacing Ben Affleck's version in the final timeline. A last-minute change born from an ongoing joke on set about how many Batmen the film would include. Fittingly, for a film about fractured timelines and alternate realities, The Flash went through a development process that mirrored its own premise, a chaotic multiverse of different scripts, creative visions, and what could have beens. By the time it hit theaters, the project had cycled through an astonishing 45 writers, making it one of the most turbulent productions in superhero film history. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories and unmade movies.